Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're going to walk through the Ontario Cannabis Store's Q3 numbers that cover October 1st to December 31st, 2020. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learn something, please just leave a like on my channel, as it really helps out, and I do appreciate it. And then, of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity and learn about the US market and the Canadian market, because there are a lot of differences and a lot of important things to know, definitely subscribe so you don't miss any new videos. And then you can go back and watch some episodes of Reality Check Cannabis in 2020 or episodes of This Week in Cannabis from October leading up until now, because a lot has changed. It changes fast, but the main thing is the momentum is now behind us and moving forward, which is great. And I'm happy to report that the growth continues in Canada. Now, the main thing to say to start out, though, is that Ontario is where 14.5 million Canadians live, and we have a total population of 38 million. So sales growth and sales in this province really do matter, and we're learning a lot. We have firsthand data, which is great. But as you can see, when Canada legalized in 2018, even after, Ontario only opened 25 stores, which is not how you're going to eliminate the black market. But as you can see, in Ontario, only 4.6% of cannabis was bought through the legal source when we legalized, which means everyone stuck to the illegal market. But as you can see, with opening more stores, that is the main key here. But opening more stores, more access points for people to buy legal cannabis that is safer, or at least, safe tested by the government, but at least deemed as safe and in their control. So they actually get to know what they're buying. They get to ask the right questions that fits their situation, and they get to buy a product, eventually go home and use a cannabis strain that's going to make them feel better, whether it's for pain, whether it's for sleep. But the point is, now 40.3% of Ontario is buying from legal sources, whether it be retail or on OCS. So that is huge. That is massive, and that just, again, points out that if you make it accessible and you open stores where people are and they can choose, obviously bringing the price down makes a big difference, but they will choose, they will often go to buying from the legal source because they know what they're buying. And that does add a part to it of control that I think humans just we like having that control, right? So total grams sold in this 3-month period, 30 million grams. Awesome. And so 4.1 million grams went to the Ontario Cannabis Store, so the government, whereas 25.9 grams went to the retail stores. So the retail stores are selling 6 times the amount of the Ontario Cannabis Store. It just goes to show people don't want to buy from the government. People don't necessarily want to buy online if they can just go somewhere, again, on foot and, have an experience, be in a, again, it does make a difference regardless. And so Ontario's sales accounted for 29.4 million, where the retail store sales accounted for 221 million. So again, so much strength coming from these retail stores for a total of 251 million in these last 3 months. So again, this is record numbers for Canada. And this, so at the end of this period, there were 324 stores open in Ontario, up from 182 when I did the Q2 review. So that is a big jump. Seems like people are buying more when they order too, buying in bulk, and they just have a lot more unique listed items, which is big because, of course, people want to buy new things. As we can see, Ontario is leading the growth, and Alberta is second place, which is interesting because Quebec is actually our second most populated province, Canada's French-speaking province, with 8 million people roughly, and Alberta has only 4.5 million people. But Alberta is like the Texas of Canada, very right-wing or free market. So from the get-go, when cannabis was legalized, they opened, I think, 300 stores right away, and then they had about 500 few months later. So they definitely allowed the access points and opened the floodgates from the beginning, and for that reason, they have more sales than Quebec, a province that has double the population, because Quebec only has 55 retail locations. So, this goes to show that as Ontario is announcing more stores as well, that, obviously comes from where the population is, where the access points are, and we can see that with Alberta, and then Quebec and British Columbia behind there, but the main thing is the sales data, what we can look at here. So if you're invested in a Canadian LP or a US MSO, you want to know the brand of the company that you're invested in, or the brands, so that you can check whether it's doing well with the dried flower, the vapes, or the pre-rolls. And then, of course, we do have lots of other product categories and placements down here. But of course, if the top 3 are driving 80% of sales, you want to be invested in Canadian licensed producers that are taking up this market share, that are selling the most dried flower, selling the most vapes, and selling the most pre-rolls. Beverages is something that I looked at because think about Canopy when they decided that we're going to start this from scratch and do it ourselves. Looking back, not a great return on investment just based on, the tight regulations and the environment we have here with government, but then also just lack of sales. It's very unfortunate, but you can't predict that. You just have to try and see what happens. But the main thing is if you own a Canadian LP, you want to own one that has the, number one market share in at least one of these categories or two if possible. So Canadians love their THC, I think as most cannabis consumers do, and I hope we get more research to find out the benefits of THC fundamentally, but this is just saying that most people do buy the 3.5 gram offerings, probably because buying 3.5, it's less expensive, so that you could buy a few different kinds to try it out, as opposed to buying bulk. Mind you, of course, you can buy bulk cheaper, but you have that one strain to last you a long time. But again, hey, if you enjoy it, that is the benefit of being able to choose and having that freedom of choice. Now, one thing that we do note whenever we go through here, new sales and new product categories, as long as they're heading up in the right direction, this is what we want to see. And again, just significantly more sales coming from the retail stores. So if, and I'm going to show you Headset.io in a moment, but if you can track which companies are doing the best and selling the most, then you can make very educated guesses with your investments and feel better about them. The more you understand the company and the more you look into the data and find these different important indicators. Now, this is the big thing though, the top 5 brands per category based on sales. And so again, if we want to look at what actually matters, this is sales in Ontario, but we're looking at the 3 top categories. And again, not that the other categories don't matter, but again, what has the most impact on sales kind of thing, right? So we know that it was dried flower, vapes, and pre-rolls. So if we look here, dried flower, vapes, pre-rolls, we can find the brands that are the best-selling ones, and then of course the companies behind that. That's where you'd want to look into having your money, ideally. And again, this covers October 1st to December 31st, and as we're in March now looking at this, we're going to see these sales reflected. I believe Village Farms International releases their earnings on March 16th, but we're going to see these numbers reflected in the upcoming earnings. And then when the Ontario Cannabis Store publishes their Q4, which would cover January, February, March, that's when we would see those numbers in the following earnings. So we do have to use old data, but again, I'll show you some tips afterwards. But retail stores, we look at dried flower, Pure Sun Farms, which is Village Farms International. So they have the number 1 market share in Ontario. So that says it. Who would you want to invest in? Possibly the company with the number 1 market share. Second, we have Good Supply, which is Afria. Third, we have Redecan at 6%. Fourth is Daily Special, which is Aurora at 4%. And Tweed is 5th, Canopy at 4%. So as you can see here, it seems like Village Farms International, then Afria, then Redecan, which is a private company you can invest in, then Aurora, and then Tweed. So, if think about it 2 years ago, if you could show someone the screenshot, they'd be like, wow, I did not expect that, especially with how big Tweed and how big Aurora was, right? But so if dried flowers are the most sales and they're coming through the retail stores, you want to own number 1 or 2 in that section. But then let's take a look at vapes. Redecan, number 1 with 17% market share, then Good Supply, which is Afria with 14% market share, Daily Special, which is Aurora with 8%. Gosh, I gotta stop clicking on this. Sorry, Back 40, I do not know the brand or the company behind that brand, 5%. And then Pure Sun Farms, again, they are getting a good portion of sales with 5% of vape sales. So, second to focus on, and then third, pre-rolls, we have Redecan, again, private company you can't invest, but Good Supply, Riff, Soleil, all Afria, Trailblazer, I believe, is Organigram. But so, that is why I invested in Afria a long time ago, even in 2018. Not to say I knew anything that anyone else didn't back then, I just thought that they were going to be, they had the best brands and they would be number 1. But so if we look at OCS data, now again, this captures a lot less sales volume. Mind you, we still do need to consider it. So dried flower, Pure Sun Farms, again, leading the way. Good Supply, which is Afria. Shred, I do not know what that is, but as opposed to buying buds, you can just get pre-ground flour, so you can just roll it easily or use it in your whatever you consume cannabis with. Hexo and Redecan. Vapes on this side, Hexo, Daily Special, which is Aurora, Soleil, Redecan, Good Supply, again, Afria, and then Redecan, Good Supply, Riff, Highway, and Soleil. So a lot of Afria. Afria pretty much dominates pre-rolls. Afria does well with vapes for dried flower, and I've said this many times. I'm happy to say it again. Canopy and Aurora could have a potential in the future, but fundamentally for myself, the only 2 Canadian LPs I would consider are Village Farms International and then Afria, which will merge with Tilray. Strictly because of the data. Nothing more, nothing less. I look at the data, and the data tells me what to invest in long term now. To go through this, we can, but mainly this data just shows that pricing, hey, if you open up legal access points for purchase. Of course, the Ontario Cannabis Store is selling it at the lowest cost in order to try to compete with the retail stores. But data just shows that people love to be able to go and shop and buy what they want to buy. And you can compete with the illegal market. So at least we're working towards that perfect equilibrium, but progress is being made, which is good. And then again, growing access points, this is the main thing, where 183 stores, 324 stores, and Ontario did announce in February, so they announced in September that they would go from 20 stores to 40 stores a month. Then in December, they announced they would go from 40 stores to 80 stores a month. And then in February, I believe it was February 16th, from one of my past videos, they will go from 80 stores a month to 120 a month, which will equate to more than 1,000 stores just added in the next 12 months by the end of December. This was starting in December 2020. So by the end of December 2021, there will be over 1,000 cannabis stores in Ontario, which will significantly help these sales. So just wanted to share that. And of course, the more stores that you have, each store is going to sell more themselves if they can take on their own area. But fundamentally, just more access points. This is just proven data that shows that this is fun. Obviously, it helps, and it does help eliminate the black market. That's the main thing I wanted to show you. But back to the data here. Again, the most important thing, there is a website called Headsetio, and I just wanted to show this all to you. So if you own any Canadian licensed producers or any U.S. multi-state operators, you can check sales in Canadian provinces or in U.S. states as well. And what this company does, Headset, they work with the POV, like the new tech cash stations, and they collect this data. But so for Ontario, again, this is what we're going off of. If we want to look, the number one flower in Ontario as of March 10th, so this is real-time data. We can see that Afrea's got number one with Good Supply. Haven Street, I do not recall, I forget which company's behind that. They're number 2, but we have Pure Sun Farms number 3, Good Supply, Afrea again number 4, Tweed number 5, Pure Sun Farms again, Tweed, Pure Sun Farms, Redecan, Namaste. So this is based off of the last 90 days of units sold, but amazing that we have this, and this is the best part. We can check from flower, we can go to pre-rolls, and also see which companies are doing best. In the past, Afrea was really crushing it in a lot of these sections. Now it does seem like other brands are branching out. Redecan does sell very well, it seems like, but we got Redecan, Good Supply, 7 Acres, I forget who that is. I think that's Supreme Cannabis, Good Supply, Redecan, Riff, Citizen Stash, Ghost, Color, I think that's Weed MD. Again, Afrea just does well. But then Vapes is another important one. That one's going to grow, I think, as well with the technology, the ease. And it seems like Aurora is actually catching up here. Got 1 and 2 right now. Canica is Tilray, Redecan, Afrea, Redecan, Afrea crushing it. So, combining this with these monthly reports and, tracking just 1 or 2 companies on your stock app, whether it be an LP, whether it be a US MSO. Now, I will repeat this many times. I do believe that for the current prices, you will get a better bang for your buck, and you will buy at a better margin of safety if you buy U.S. multi-state operators as opposed to Canadian licensed producers right now, just because the U.S. market will grow faster than the Canadian one, and there are so many more people, and states are reforming because they need the jobs, the tax revenue, the alternative to opioids, and all that. So just wanted to show you this, though, folks, so you can start doing your own research. Use headset.io as you please. Go to bestsellers, select the area. You might have to do some Googling, too. Which company is behind the brand Good Supply? Which company is behind the brand Haven Street, Cannabis, if you need to add that. But I just want to show you how I learned over time. This has been like an MBA for my own self, learning how just the supply and demand of it, opening stores, and it's just been fascinating, great learning experience. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave a like if you learned something, and subscribe if you don't want to miss any new videos, and I will catch you on Sunday for This Week in Cannabis. Have a great evening, everybody.